All right, everybody, welcome to this week's Market Snapshot, where we're going to go through what's happened in the Northern Virginia real estate market in the last 7 days in under 5 minutes, maybe a little bit more. Here we go. Okay, so this is, we are in the week when school began. We just finished up we're right in the middle of the first week of school. So we're gonna see what the effect that school has on the market. And as a general rule, what you'll see showings start to slow down. You'll see new listings slow down a little bit for a couple weeks anytime around this, when school starts or when school ends. And the reason for this is because people are traveling, they're getting settled in, they're trying to get, fall sports are starting. So everybody's kind of getting right back into the scene of life. So they kind of back away from the market. So we're going to see how that affected the numbers for this past 7 days. And then we can watch that and see how that changes as we move out of the beginning of school phase. So let's go ahead and dive right into the numbers, see where we are. Okay, so again, these numbers are for Fairfax County. As always, the black line is going to be the buyer activity. These are properties that went under contract in the last 7 days. These are not properties that sold, they're properties that went under contract. So this is real-time effect. And then we have our teal line, which is going to be your inventory. So black line is demand, teal line is supply. And you can see that buyer activity decreased, which we kind of expected because of school starting. And the teal line, the inventory, it decreased a little bit, but over the last few weeks, it's kind of staying within this range. So it's fairly steady. You can see that this is a little bit higher than it was last year at this time. Looks like maybe about 10-15% higher than it was this year, this time last year. And you can see the buyer activity actually went down a little bit. So this decrease in buyer activity and the decrease in inventory, we have a slight advantage of demand over supply or buyer activity over inventory. So if we get on here to our seller's market versus our buyer's market, you can see that this middle line right here is our normal market. Anything above that line is going to be a seller's market, which is what we've been very used to for the last several years. Anything below that's going to be the buyer's market. And you can see last week we were right on that normal market. Today we just elevated just a little bit. So, so what does that mean for contracts? So this is how we can tell kind of how the effect it's having on buyers and what they can get in a contract, and the effect on what a seller should be able to expect to happen with the contract. So we're going to focus on Virginia here. You can see that 57% of the properties sold at or above list price. So we're still seeing the majority of properties are going at list price or above. You'll see that 26% of them went above list price, so right around a quarter. If you go down here to days on market, you'll see that about 56%, almost the exact same number, sold within 21 days of being on the market. 33% sold in the first 7 days. So what this means is, as a seller, you want to sell your property, price your property, and have it in the condition to where the demand is there to be able to sell it in that first 7 days. Because the people that sold in those first 7 days are likely the 26 people that got above asking price. If you are priced fairly, but just not enough to generate that demand, you really want to sell within the first 21 days, because then you'll get at least your asking price. But if you go over that 21 days, then you're going to get below asking price. You can see that 44% below asking, or I'm sorry, 43% below asking price, and 44% 22 plus days on the market. So days on market are critical, especially as a seller when you're coming on. It's also important for buyers to understand this, because if you are a buyer and you see a property that's 14 days on the market, you may still be thinking along the lines of what was happening 6 months ago or a year ago, where you might be able to get a little bit of discount on that property. And the fact of the matter is, you still are going to have to put in an offer at least at asking price. And you need to do it quickly. You don't wait for it to hit that 22-day mark, because if it's priced appropriately, it will sell at that asking price or possibly generate multiple offers. So we've seen a couple buyers have that happen, where they go in, they'll see a property, it's 20 days on the market, they'll put an offer in, and then all of a sudden another offer comes in, now they're competing. So so it's still competitive as far as the buyer's concerned, but it's not as competitive as it has been. Financing versus cash here in Virginia, only 13% of people are paying cash, the rest has all been financing. So what about the contingencies? What about the protections that a buyer can get in a contract and as a seller that you should expect to see? Staying right around the same as far as finance and appraisal contingency, 29 and 27%. That's been right around 25 to 30% for several weeks now. Inspection contingencies, still almost half of the contracts have inspection contingencies in them. So 47%, I think last week it was 45%. So it's still staying in that pretty much mid-range. Half have them and half don't. If you're a seller and you only get one offer and it has an inspection contingency, you're probably going to have to deal with that fact and go ahead and do the inspection contingency. But if you price it well enough and present it well enough to generate that competition, that's when you're going to be able to get rid of those inspection contingencies. All right, so if you have any questions, basically what this means for buyers is it's a good time for buyers to be out here looking, especially since they just announced that Powell is signaling that he might be cutting rates. If he does actually cut rates, that demand is going to pick up, and those you're going to start losing these contingencies, and those sales prices are going to start going up. So if you are thinking about buying in the next month or two, you need to really think about doing it right now. Sellers, hang in there. Properties are sitting on the market a little bit longer than we were used to, but as long as you're priced appropriately and as long as your condition is good, then the property is going to sell at list price or above. If you're overpriced, you have to be realistic and realize that you're probably going to get under listing price. If you would like a free buyer consultation or seller consultation with me and Kelly, be happy to sit down with you. Just reach out to us at 703-783-2143, and we will see you guys on next week's Market Snapshot. Have a great week out there.